Hi guys. So Arsenal, Arsenal just lost to Liverpool, and under very disappointing circumstances. This is a match report on the BBC website, and when you look at the match stats, white is Arsenal and yellow is Liverpool. You can see it. So this is the first half and second half. First half, Arsenal dominated. We're pretty much in control, doing pretty good. And then the second half, Liverpool started to come into the game a bit more, started gaining a bit more confidence, and took the shackles off somewhat. And they started to gain momentum. The crowd got behind them. They started to cause Arsenal a few problems. When you look at the possession stats, Liverpool just about shaded the possession. Expected goals, I don't really pay too much attention to these stats, but anyway, it looks like Arsenal had a high expected goals. We had more shots, and Liverpool had 3 shots on target. Touches inside your position half, Liverpool 16, Arsenal 28. Raya had to make 2 saves, and fouls committed was 10-8. So it was an even match. One thing that concerned me during the game is you could clearly see as the game was wearing on that Arsenal were we were kind of comfortable in the scoreline, in the sense that it almost seemed as if we settled for a draw. And I think Liverpool were there for the taking. And I think when eventually Mikel Arteta made his subs on 70 minutes, he brought on Odegaard. And let's just look at the lineup, right? So in the lineup, you saw Odegaard and Eze came on 70 minutes, replacing Mikel Merino and Gabriel Martinelli, right? And Liverpool made changes at 61 minutes when they replaced McAllister with Jones, right? And Jones brought a bit more energy into their midfield, and you see Liverpool start moving the ball around a bit more. Slot had probably already agreed to give McAllister about 60 minutes and say, I'll get you to play 60 minutes and then I'll replace you. So I think up until the 60 minutes, Arsenal were pretty comfortable. We're winning the midfield battle, and Liverpool were they were quite tame. They were quite tame. Arsenal were comfortable without really creating any glaring chances. So the thing that I think started to swing the momentum is once Jones came on, Liverpool, you can see, had a bit more energy in midfield, and they started probing a lot more through the middle. For some bizarre reason, when Odegaard and Eze came on, obviously Eze came on the left, replacing Martinelli, and then Odegaard went into the number 10 role. And we seem to be covering Odegaard, when pressing, seemed to be covering the right side of the pitch to stop, Liverpool getting wide. And as a result of that, I think Van Dijk started probing a lot more through balls in the middle. There was one that we nearly got caught out. I think it was intercepted by Mosquera. And then the one for the goal was, I think Van Dijk played it through. Again, we seem to have kind of shuffled towards the right to stop Liverpool going out wide. So when Zubimendi tried to come back inside, he literally just committed a foul because he was caught on the wrong side. I can't remember the play foul. But anyway, at that point, Arsenal were open. So it looked like, if you look at the stats, as I said, the goal, I can't really see let's see the table view. But when you look at the graphical view, you can see Liverpool was starting to build small momentum, right? And this is where the goal came, where Liverpool weren't really creating any much action, but Arsenal were pretty comfortable. Once they scored a goal, look at the peaks in Arsenal action. Suddenly, the Arsenal action went up. So there was clearly a gap in the second half between, you can see the white lines as Arsenal, and here, where we just relinquished control to Liverpool without any reason. And I think this is where you have to look at Mikel Arteta, because, this game, when you look at it, Arsenal were comfortable. There was, we had no reason whatsoever to lose this game or to be under any sort of panic whatsoever. We're pretty comfortable. We're pretty comfortable. It wasn't as if Liverpool were creating significant problems for Arsenal to the extent that, you'd panic. But also we're pretty comfortable. So again, I'm referring to the graph on the screen there. The yellow peaks, the yellow bars represent Liverpool. And just to the top right of that, as you can see here, is when Liverpool scored. So for me, I'm looking at it and thinking, what was Arteta waiting for? Why did he, I'd appreciate, Liverpool scored on, let's see when the goal happened on 83 minutes, right? 83 minutes Liverpool scored. So that was, if you look at the lineup, that was literally 13 minutes after we'd made our first row of substitution, which tells me that the substitution had very little effect, right? It wasn't the fact that Arteta delayed his subs. It was the fact that the shape of the team was wrong, right? And the subs created an element of imbalance. Now, some people will say to me, I thought the lineup, I wasn't expecting the lineup that we started with, playing Merino, Rice, and Zubimendi in the midfield. But I think it stabilized us. It made us a little bit more calmer at the start of the game. And I actually thought we were pretty comfortable. Would I have started with this lineup? Probably not. But I thought, okay, that's a sensible lineup in a big game. Give us a foothold in the game, get us to settle down and grow into the game. And that worked. I was quite happy with the way the game played out. Halftime, I think it was okay. Second half, you can see the game then started to drift into this typical stalemates where neither team was really trying to win the game. But you can see Liverpool, as I said, when you look at the match stats, all of a sudden started to gain the ascendancy. The crowd started to get a bit more behind them. They started to get a bit more joy with the through balls. So they started to create chances. I think before the goal, there was one where Salah actually got a shot at the edge of our box, and then he took a touch, and then the shot was blocked. So the warning signs were there. For me, there were two fatal errors by Arteta. And one was that he made the wrong substitution. I was okay with bringing on Eze, right? But I wasn't okay with bringing on Odegaard. For me, Odegaard hadn't trained all week, right? He picked up a shoulder injury against Leeds. And it was reported, Arteta himself said that he hadn't trained all week. So on the bench, we had Mars Lewis Skelly, we had Eze, we had Waneri and Trossard, right? So for me, for Arteta to bring on Odegaard ahead of these players, for me, showed a lack of meritocracy. And I think this is where Arteta's obsession with the Odegaard experiment is going to ultimately cost him his job. Odegaard is to Arteta what Xhaka was to Arsene Wenger, right? The obsession to bring on Odegaard, for me, needs to end, right? Look between Odegaard and Eze. Out of these two players, who do you recall had the most effective game, had the most magic moment where you thought, something could happen here? It was clearly Eze. When Eze came on, when he took a touch, you could clearly see a spark. You could clearly see the team spark into life. And he had one, clearly, he was through on goal. I thought that's going to be a goal. He delayed a shot for some reason. And football, I think, as fans, we underestimate how huge psychological game football is. Football is such a huge psychological game. You could practice, but when it comes to match day, unless you've been in that position for so many times, you're going to struggle to execute. And there was a moment in the second half when Eze got into that, when he got into the that promising position. And I thought to myself, he's going to score. He delayed the shot, and for some reason, I think he got put off his stride by the Liverpool defender whose name escaped me, and then the chance went. So, and then we went back. But for me, I go back to the central problem with Mikel Arteta to bring on Odegaard. Now, if Odegaard was fully fit, right, and he started, I'd say fair enough. But I think for me, this Odegaard experiment has to end, right? Especially when you're looking for a goal. This whole thing about Odegaard presses, it's ineffective. For me, he flatters to deceive. I would have brought on Eze into the number 10 role. I mean, again, I thought actually Madueke was playing actually really well. Okay, Arteta took him off in the 89th minute, well after the goal. But for me, Eze should have come in the number 10 role. He absolutely should have come in and played in the number 10 role. And there's a question mark of whether perhaps Waneri should have come on for Martinelli. Because that's where we're causing, Madueke was causing Kekes. Uki was cooking him, right? It was just that once he got past him, the central areas, there was not enough options in the central areas for us to exploit. I think there was one instance where Joker has actually got in, but Konate cleared it. So for me, that's how the pattern of the game turned out. And for Arteta to bring on Odegaard ahead of Waneri, for me, was just a piss take. I did not understand why he made that substitution. For me, the Odegaard experiment has to end because it's ultimately going to cost us trophies. You could not have a number 10 who cannot carry the ball with speed and precision. You could not have a number 10 who, once he gets grounded out, he surrenders possession. Odegaard has some positives, but he needs to now be picked on merit. He cannot be guaranteed a position in the team. And for me, this game was set up for a magic moment. And the two players that we had on the bench who were capable of these magic moments for me was Eze, Waneri, and possibly Trossard, right? Trossard scores unconventional goals. So I did not understand why Arteta brought on Odegaard when he did. We lost a bit of momentum for me when he came on. He did the usual thing he does, comes on, presses a bit, runs around, gets the ball, passes around. It's ineffective. What teams fear the most is speed, power, and a player who runs directly at them. That's why Madueke was causing a lot of problems. I think Madueke was one of the brightest spots in the game, actually. So for me, when you look at this game it went away from us in that small intervening period when Liverpool made their substitution on the 60th minute, and then we waited to the 70th minute to make our subs. But at that time, Liverpool had started to build momentum. We were too preoccupied. I think Arsenal were too fixated with covering the right side of the pitch. And I'm struggling to understand why. When Liverpool were in possession, it was almost as if we were, inviting them to pass the ball down the middle. Now, with the loss of Saliba, and fair play to Mosquera, he came in and he played absolutely well. Ordinarily, Saliba would get tight when that ball gets played and he goes. But, whoever got that ball, I don't know whether it was Jones or Szoboszlai, he was able to turn and run, and Zubimendi was caught on the wrong side. And that's how we ended up creating, surrendering or conceding the free kick. And fair play, that was an excellent free kick that, it's when it's settled, it's hard to argue when an excellent free kick of that nature settles a game, right? But I think for me, the warning signs were there from the 60th minute, and Arteta should have heeded to it. Once you concede on 83 minutes, you're then trying to recover position. And you can see, again, when you look at a graph of the actions, once we conceded a goal, Arsenal then started to pick up momentum. It was too little too late. But the peaks were not as good as Liverpool's, because you can see Liverpool creating all these peaks quite early on. They thought to themselves, there's probably a potential to win this game here. And the problem I have is when you're away from home, right, and it's 0-0, again, in a major club, away to a major rival like Liverpool, you know at some point the crowd are going to get behind them and they're going to create a chance. So at 0-0, it's actually very dangerous for us, right? It was not a game that we were going to see out without any risk. And this is where I think Arteta failed. For me, the subs and bringing on Odegaard ahead of Madueke, Waneri, Eze, and Trossard completely killed our momentum. There was no need for it whatsoever, right? And then on top of that, Arsenal just, for some reason, seemed to have settled for a draw. And settling for a draw carried a huge amount of risk when you're away to a major rival. We did this at City, 2 seasons ago, and it was seen as, a positive result. I thought that was a positive result because I was quite deep into the season, and a point away to your rivals was always going to be a great result, and our destiny was in our hands at that time. So for me, this early in the season, playing against a Liverpool side who didn't look like they had confidence, they looked like they would have been happy with the draw, but at some point they had a spark. The crowd got behind them, and they started to gain a bit more momentum. Arteta made the completely wrong subs. He made the wrong subs by bringing on Odegaard to come and play in his favourite role, and then kind of played Eze out of position. And even when Eze was out of position, he produced some real magic moments. So imagine if Eze was actually playing in his favourite position in the number 10, where he didn't have to be burdened with all the defensive duties. So I don't want to go into an overreaction and say, this is an absolute disaster of a result. But this was a massive opportunity missed. Arsenal absolutely had Liverpool on toast, right? For about 45 minutes, they were just there. It was like a boxing match where each boxer was just throwing jabs, and occasionally Arsenal landed some good, uppercuts, etc. But it wasn't good enough to knock out the opponent, right? And then you go to the 6th round, and then we literally, put our guards down. And Liverpool thought, okay, you know what? Maybe we might be able to go for it. And they started growing in confidence, right? And they wanted to an exceptional free kick. So for me, I think it's all on the manager, right? This is where I think this is what separates champions from, teams like us. For us to be champions, we needed to go here. And I didn't want to draw this game. I wanted to win or lose. I wanted to win this game. I wanted to lose this game trying to win it. If we'd have lost this game trying to win it, I would have said, you know what, fair enough. We tried to win it and we lost. But to actually lose the game when you're not trying to lose, it's an absolute disaster for me, right? And that's the problem I have with Arteta, because it looked like, we didn't want to lose. We played out to not to lose, and we lost the game. After the first half, at 60 minutes, we should have gone for it. And he shouldn't have brought on Odegaard. He should have brought on Eze in the number 10 role to replace Mourinho, kept Madueke on, and possibly replaced Martinelli with Waneri. Try something different, or bring on Trossard. Bring on Trossard, replace Martinelli was clearly ineffective. And one thing Martinelli, I think he gets heavily criticized. He works his socks off, but he has no cutting edge. His decision making in the final third, it's not the best. But after he's put on the shift for 60 minutes, and you really want to unlock the opposition like Liverpool with a player who maybe is a bit unpredictable, has cutting edge, you bring on Trossard. Odegaard is not going to score the winning goal, right? He's not going to create the winning chance. And he clearly wasn't fit enough to start. So I do not understand the thought process behind Arteta's substitutions, for me personally. And I thought it killed our momentum. It killed any chances of us winning that game. So as you can see, Liverpool didn't gain momentum. They started creating a lot more patterns, started creating a lot more actions. We started, dropping our midfield a bit more. Odegaard is getting pressing, but it wasn't really effective. So this is a massive, massive opportunity lost for me. There's a 2-week international break that's going to leave a huge void for all kinds of conversations, etc., especially around Arteta. Is he brave enough, to take us over the line? is he bold enough to go to a major rival's backyard and actually stick it on them? You know, make the subs, do something unpredictable. Don't revert to the familiar and well rehearsed. Bringing on Odegaard to play in the number 10 role. We just bought Eze. He's a fantastic number 10. He has high IQ. He's very good on the ball. You play him on the left, negate most of his strength, but he still created this spark. You know, he created these magic moments. So imagine what he could have done in his favorite position. So I thought, yeah, overall for me, this game was a bit of a letdown, in my opinion. I thought Arteta, the stage was set for us to really go and win this game. I don't have a problem with the team he picked at the start. That created a platform for us. It calmed our nerves. It gave us a foothold in the game. Once it was stabilized, we should have gone in with a knockout punch, and we didn't. He just did what he typically do, which is, you know, play his favorite players in their favorite position, i.e., Odegaard. I don't think we needed Odegaard on the pitch after 70 minutes, given how the game was playing out. I thought we needed Eze. Go and try and win the game. Lose the game trying to win it rather than lose the game not trying not to lose. So that's, yeah, for me, that's where I'll leave it there. It was, yeah, it was a very disappointing end to the game. And I thought there was so much promise in what we could have done. But anyway, we'll leave it there. But thanks for listening. Peace.